Welcome to Theater and Stream, a film podcast. I am Matt, that is Chuck. This is episode 85. Today's episode, it concerns two science fiction movies. They're separated by about 20 years, but they're united by an incredibly handsome lead actor who's out to save the world. In other words, we are calling this episode the White Savior Space Stories episode. First up, we've got the recently released box office smash, Project Hail Mary. And then we're going all the way back to 2007 for a second look at the Danny Boyle, Alex Garland joint, Sunshine. And, these movies, they do have a lot in common. They're united by a bunch of different things. There's also a bunch of differences between how they're approached. But Chuck, what do you, when you think about sort of the uniting factor of these two movies, what they have in common, what do you think of? What comes to mind?
It's not just their pasty white, male leads, and granted, these actually do have a pretty diverse casts overall, considering one of them has a rock alien. But more so, it's about what are they up against? And what I found, especially after revisiting Sunshine, even though it does have its, weird little actual villain turn happen, what the virtues that both of these movies kind of embrace, though, is having an antagonist that is human error or fallibility. Yeah, sure, it's the sun is dimming, and it's about overcoming why the sun is dimming. But if something's going to go wrong and impede, the mission here, it's someone just getting the math wrong or just forgetting to factor in something into a decision and then having to try and fix the problem. And I just think that Sunshine was way ahead of its time. If Sunshine was released in a post-Andy Weir world, post-Martian, I think people wouldn't hold so many things against it, because really spectacular movie. We'll get into it, though. First up is Project Hail Mary. Now, I am a big fan of The Martian. I really like the movie. I've never read the book. I haven't read any of his books. What did you know about this going in? Did you have its twist spoiled for you?
I did, unfortunately. Yeah, the movie's trailers really went out of their way to spoil this thing, which is very unfortunate. But yeah, I had also heard of the book because I believe Project Hail Mary was released in the time frame between when the Martian movie came out and now. So it was very, very hyped up. People were like, that book, Project Hail Mary, was basically sold as the next book from the guy who wrote The Martian, because people now knew what that meant. And so it was incredibly popular. It still is. I was literally at Barnes and Noble earlier this week, and the guy in front of me in the line to check out was buying Project Hail Mary because he had just seen the movie in theaters. So, yeah, incredibly popular.
There you go.
Books. So,
Saving
but
book
yeah, that's
sales.
kind of what I knew. Yeah, yeah, exactly. But yeah, and I come from the perspective of also not having read any of Weir's stuff, also just seeing the movies that we've gotten so far, and I imagine we're going to get more. So, yeah, I guess from that perspective, what did you think of it?
I initially was, pretty, swept up in it. The humor was oppressive at times, but they have to find some way to keep it, light and engaging, when it's, just a man on a set talking to himself, for, 2.5 fucking hours. Granted, we do get the flashbacks, but, and I think that's kind of what I observed is this is the way that Andy Weir tells stories. There is a structure to how he sets things up. I'm assuming, since he wrote the screenplay here, there's a pattern that he follows with everything that he writes. Mm-hmm. And he needed to have something to come back to and something to create some mystery, for the audience. Because one thing that I observed, looking on the Wikipedia afterwards, the book is structured chronologically. It's summary. So you have the whole twist spoiled for you. in terms of, like how committed was our protagonist to his mission. He didn't want to fucking do it. Like that being the twist, I think is kind of inspired. It subverts expectations in a way that I think is human and believable. Because yeah, like who would actually commit themselves to a suicide mission? Not many people would. And so like this is a realistic reaction to someone being like, we're gonna throw you on a fucking spam in a can, and we're gonna launch you into space, and we're gonna send you to another solar system against your will. Like that, I enjoyed that part quite a bit. And overall, good experience. I understand why people are in love with it, but it, I didn't like it as much as I liked The Martian. I just kind of found it a little too easy, of a way of exploring, the Andy Weir wants to inspire you. It's not quite like Sunshine, which we'll get into, which has a very different take on like overcoming human error. But in this one, it's like anything can be overcome, and I guess you want to feel that way when you walk out of a movie. Sometimes you want to feel like, yeah, anything is possible. We can do this impossible thing, even if we don't think that we're capable of it. So I think it makes sense that this one's getting accepted because we need good vibes right now. This world is very anxious. You know, tragedy continues to happen all the world over, but at least in Hollywood, Ryan Gosling can save us all.
Yeah, there is a lot of, I've noticed in sort of the reviews, the reactions to this movie, there's a lot of lip service being paid to the fact that a lot of people are like, this, hopefully this movie inspires sort of the next generation to go into like the sciences
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
and to be, to be interested. And so like that's, a lot of lip service towards that. I don't know if it's quite that, if you have to look at it quite that seriously. It's not, it's not the second coming, as it were. To me, this is the definition of a good crowd pleaser. Four quadrant filmmaking at its best, the type of movie that you can take your parents to.
Mm.
The only thing that I really would fault it for is the relentless comedy, where it's, I understand why it's there. You have to keep, like you said, keep people interested, and then just the guy, Lord and Miller are, this is what they're known for. This is what they do. This is what they got fired off of the Han
Exactly.
Solo movie for, where they wanted to just cram that thing full of humor and improv, and that scared the Disney execs. When you say the word improv to a Disney exec, they're like, no, 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 no. You're gonna follow a script. You're not. There's no improv here. In our $150 million movie or $200 million movie, and so this is kind of what those guys do. But yeah, I did. I really appreciated it for, being able to make a faceless rock puppet interesting and compelling. Being able to make Gosling, Ryan Gosling carries this movie on his back, and that's pretty impressive for a 155-minute movie. And so, yeah, I appreciated the movie more than I enjoyed it because the comedy really did get to me. It really got to me.
Because that's the thing. Like there was too much brightness in a world like especially on Earth. Like
Yeah,
things
that's
should have been,
dying.
there should have been way more fucking depression. It's
Yeah.
like because I compare it to Interstellar specifically because that world felt so like that Earth, that version of Earth, just felt so depressed and like in despairing. In a way like it was kind of like a horror movie. Because you're just there was no hope, and you were seeing the actual consequences of them not being able to like find the answer to their problem. And you just didn't quite get that sense except for the karaoke scene. That's the one time where like I really felt that vibe where it was like, yeah, it's like last one out, turn off the light on your way out the door basically. Because like yeah, because like as I think I didn't quite pick up on it, but you were right. In the notes you mentioned the fact that they're layering up progressively more and more and more. Like
Yeah.
that's the one
Yeah,
hint
they're
we get. that we're eventually going to be living in Snowpiercer land.
Yeah, they layer up and they wear like they go from basically wearing t-shirts to like coats upon coats, and of course you have the sweater that everybody's going crazy about now. I don't know. Have you picked up on any of
It's
that
it's funny how that
line of thinking?
works. You know,
Yeah.
like where there's something like that where people like, and it's Ryan Gosling. Like this is his like 40-year-old man version of the Drive jacket, the Scorpion jacket. This
Yeah,
is like the
exactly.
second time in his career this has happened.
Well, yeah, that, and it also reminds me of remember when Knives Out came out and everybody wanted the Chris Evans sweater?
Oh yeah, yeah.
The he wears that like big wool sweater during, I think it's throughout the whole movie, but specifically during like the scene where they go to the diner or whatever, and people just really wanted that. But yeah, it's see the thing about the comic relief is I thought the humor was good. I thought it was a well-written script. Drew Goddard is a co-writer on this, which he's a very, very accomplished screenwriter, and a lot of the jokes, they did. I mean, they're good. They're good jokes. They land, but the problem that I come up against is that it makes Grace too buffoonish at
Mm-hmm.
times, and it infantilizes Rocky too, the character of Rocky, where it's you have this character that should be this like genius. By all accounts, he's this genius engineer on his planet, and there are these scenes where he's like bouncing around the ship, and he's like, he's behaving like a child
Yeah.
essentially, and it's like this is too much. This isn't selling me the fact that this is this genius engineer, or this fact that Ryan Gosling's character is this genius, this mind, or this pillar in the scientific community, this guy who had the idea that everybody else shunned him for, but and then he's tripping over himself constantly, and he's stumbling everywhere, and it's just, it doesn't really work with the characterization.
The only explanation that you can think of, that I can think of, for to be devil's advocate here for the way that they portray Rocky is
Mhm.
this alien man thing has been alone on his like massive over-engineered spaceship for how many years? He's going crazy, man.
Sure.
And he's just having trouble. And so he finally gets to explore a new space and be around somebody new, and he's just like reverting to childlike behavior because he's going
Mhm.
cuckoo bananas like Freakazoid. Only thing that makes sense, because
Yeah.
otherwise, yeah, it's he could have been a lot more refined. And I think it's funny that, because yeah, depending on whether it's Meryl Streep speaking for him or if it's just like the guy, the tech guy that they wound up giving the voice job to. It's either he's like, oh, I'm Meryl Streep and I talk like this now. Oh, I don't know if I like this voice. To I am like a dog that's pushing those buttons that speak for dogs. Have you seen those?
Yeah.
Where
Yep.
yeah, it's like a trained dog. He's like, I'm just pressing the same button over and over again. Instead of it being just someone talking, like you can tell, like one is over engineered and produced, and one they made janky and childlike, almost deliberately. So I think that speaks to your point that this was a choice they made, and I spent way too much time trying to rationalize it.
Yeah. Yeah. Same. Yeah, you already brought this up, but I think my favorite thing in this entire movie is, well, I mean, a lot of the supporting cast is great. I love their casting for a lot of this movie, like the AT&T girl, and uh, the
I didn't
guy
even
from
recognize her.
yeah, Milena Weintraub, or however you say her name, and then the guy from the security guard guy was from Loiter Squad. Did you ever watch Loiter Squad, the Odd Future show on Adult Swim?
Are you serious? That
Yeah,
dude is
that
from
guy.
Loiter Squad?
Yeah,
No
yeah, he's
shit.
yeah. That's like one of the things he's most known for, and they just kind of plucked him out of obscurity, and they're like, here, play this guy in the security guard guy in our movie, and
That's wild.
Yeah, so that was good. But the best, in my opinion, is Sandra Hüller, who I kind of I saw her in this movie. I saw her in the trailers, and I was like, okay, this is kind of her being stunt casted. This would have been her coming off of Anatomy of a Fall, and so we're gonna start seeing her in a bunch of movies because she was gobbled up after that movie. But I thought it was, ended up being very inspired, and it really comes down to that the Sign of the Times scene, the karaoke scene, which is probably the best scene in the movie, where she goes up and sings, and then I love how she cuts the song off and she's like, that's enough,
That's
that's
enough.
enough of that. Yeah, and just such a great character moment. And her I loved her characterization as kind of this, no nonsense German woman who you would expect to be no nonsense. And yeah, just loved all that stuff.
What's funny about that song choice to me uh, is that supposedly, and this is just according to Harry Styles, I believe it's a Harry Styles song. It's that it was inspired
Well, it's
by
Prince, isn't it Prince?
no, like Prince has a song called "Sign of the Times,"
Okay.
but this is a Harry Styles song.
Okay, interesting.
Uh,
Okay,
uh,
I didn't make the
yeah,
distinction.
Prince's song is like about like people doing heroin and like having guns on the street and shit like
Okay.
that. And this song is about like a either like it's from the perspective of a baby being born or of like a father seeing his baby being born.
Okay.
It's like because like my world is ending because you're here now. You know, you're like
Sure. Okay.
you know. So, but at the same time, it's like it works perfectly because
Mhm.
everything's going to shit, man. We're all gonna start eating each other to stay alive. Like it's gonna get really fucking grimdark here pretty quick.
Mhm. Yeah, that was great, and I love the other thing too. I have to give a shout out to is Daniel Pemberton's score. I don't know if you how much you paid attention to the music, but just very organ heavy. I mean, it kind of juxtaposed how funny the movie was because the score is very serious. It's very like choral and organ heavy, and
Mm-hmm.
it sounds like something to me that should be played during like a church service in like a cathedral, and it really helped sell the existential feeling.
Yeah.
Just really, really loved it. It reminded me of Philip Glass. It actually reminded me of the thing that I thought about while I was watching the movie was that the Dr. Manhattan like section of
Mm-hmm.
the Watchmen movie when we use Philip Glass. I was like, this is very like very serious, very like very almost religious sounding.
And both of these movies have that grandiosity to it, where it's
Hmm.
like you feel like you are in the presence of something sacred at times, and
Hmm.
like the music plays into that. The cinematography. Can we just talk? Like, is Greg Fraser the new guy? Because holy crap, is he killing it?
Yeah.
Between like
The new Deacons. Yeah.
he's the new Deacons. It's really too bad he's not on Dune Part 3 because he was doing this instead.
Okay. Interesting. Yeah, yeah, I mean, yeah, his cinematography, it's so great, and especially during those those the movie is surprisingly restrained with its action sequences, which I also give it credit for, where it's like it pretty much has two, or not even action sequences, but more so, spectacle
Spectacle.
sequences. And it's got that, the big red light, when he sees kind of the all of the what is it, the astrophage, around him, and then you have like the Taumiba ball fishing sequence,
Yeah.
and yeah, both of those just fantastic, and um, one of the few movies that really justifies sort of a large format screen, um, and yeah, just amazing, amazing cinematography during those. What did you make? I'm kind of curious. Um, so there's like the two other dead astronauts, and
Yeah, Ken Loong
I
and
was
Wayne Traub.
yeah,
Yeah.
and I was like, is something gonna happen with these two, or is there gonna be some sort of twist? Is there gonna be some sort of like ultimate like reason why they died. And it was interesting that it basically was just like, oh, they just died. You know, they
Yeah,
basically just didn't survive the trip. And
it's just that you
um,
roll the dice when you do theoretical hibernation sleep. You know,
yeah,
like we're putting you in a coma. All these things could go wrong. You know, and yeah, and that's the irony of the two characters who are like, yeah, I'm going to die. I know. I'm okay with this. I need to do this. I want to do this. And he's the one who's like running away, being like, no, fuck no. I'm not the one you want for this. I don't want to do this. I'm gonna stay here and just be a teacher and slowly starve to death with everybody else.
mhm.
You know, instead
Yeah,
he's forced to be the hero that we needed, you know.
yeah. Well, yeah. Ken Lung has sort of, I guess, the defining line of the movie where Ryan Gosling asks him like, "How do you be brave?" And Ken
Yeah.
Lung basically says like, "You don't be brave for yourself. Find somebody else to be brave for." And that's, I guess, sort of the defining line of the movie where Grace basically, he finds his person to be brave for in Rocky, and that ultimately sort of transitions to sort of the ending that we get. What did you make of the ending as far as
Yeah.
um I assume that Grace is, I mean, he's not going to go back to Earth, right? That's kind of what they were hinting at with the line at the end where he's like Rocky says like, we're almost ready for, for your trip back to Earth, and Ryan Gosling's basically like, I don't know what exactly he says. He's
I'm gonna
basically like,
think about
"Are
it.
we?" Or like, "Yeah, I'll think about it."
Yeah.
And he basically ends up being a teacher on the planet, which I guess ties into the theme I was talking about at the beginning with, teaching the next generation science or whatever.
Yeah.
That's kind
Yeah.
of the lesson a lot of people are taking. But yeah, what did you make of the ending?
You know, on the one hand, it's like I'm trying to think like what is keeping him, like why doesn't he want to go back to Earth? Is it because his girlfriend broke up with him all those years ago that he talked about that one time? Like what's going on here? Like why doesn't he want to go back home? Why like isn't that what he would want? But then at the same time, if you're the first human ever to get a chance to live amongst another species and you're their like god hero, like wouldn't you want that? So like on the one hand, like I spent more time just thinking of what the fuck is he doing,
Mhm.
but as I think about it, it's like no, you want to be, if he's a teacher and he wants to like actually have students invested in him, he's got them right there, and he's a novel thing. They'll listen to him. I guess he can teach them about relativity. He's their Einstein. Like all these concepts that he's brought back with from Earth to them.
Well, he could teach them about radiation so that they
Yeah,
don't die
that's what I
because
meant. Yeah,
yeah,
exactly. Yeah,
apparently their species doesn't know about radiation, and that's what eventually kills them, but or kills all the other Rockies that are in Rocky's ship. But um, yeah, I mean, I think I jived with the ending ultimately because I mean, he essentially. I mean, he has nothing to go back to. That's kind of
yeah,
that's sort of the tragic thing about Grace that maybe they don't hammer home enough is that basically Grace is he has nothing. I think Sandra Hüller at one point even says you don't even have a pet. You don't even have a dog. And he just like he has no friends, he has no family. He's just kind of like one of those guys that would have been perfect for like CIA recruitment if
yeah,
he would have gone that direction. And so um yeah, so I mean that's kind of his ultimate tragedy is that he ultimately would feel more at home on this rock planet with these where the environment is incredibly hostile to him, that's as made evident by the biodome that they build for him to survive in. But yeah, I guess
yeah.
ultimately that's kind of his the tragedy. But I don't know, anything else you wanted to mention before we move on to our second film here?
Just that solid enough experience. I think it's a little cloying and cutesy to think that this movie's going to be the reason why we're going to have so many more generations of teachers and scientists.
Mhm.
I think that's a little Pollyanna-ish. But
Oh, most definitely.
most
Yeah.
definitely. But if there was a movie that I think should be shown to students, and I mean this seriously, it should be sunshine because it drives home the consequences of math, and why you should really focus on making sure your calculations are correct and not just trusting your calculator. Like everything could go fucking pear-shaped real quick on you. And that's the lesson of Sunshine. I've spoiled it for anyone who hasn't seen it yet. But where did Alex Garland and Danny Boyle come from with this movie? Like, why did they, like, what is the story of its conception?
Well, I mean, you got to remember that we're nearing the 20-year anniversary of this movie soon here, and that this was back when Hollywood would throw around, I can't remember what the exact budget was for this. I think it was around 70, 80 million. And so they would throw
And that's an
around
Audie's money.
yeah.
That's a lot of money. Yeah.
hmm they would throw it around a lot more liberally, where they were just like, oh yeah, Danny Boyle, Alex Garland, let's do it. Let's make a movie, let's make a sci-fi movie for under $100 million. And so yeah, that's kind of where it was coming from, as far as the why it got made. But I also think there sci-fi was, these sort of mid-budget sci-fi movies were kind of big back then, because you think about, like, do you remember the movie Pandorum?
I do. That was a weird one.
Yeah, that was kind of around this time period too, and there was just a lot more of these, like, weird, like, mid-budget sci-fi movies around this time period. And but I'm glad it got made, because this was one that I saw in theaters.
I'm so jealous of you for that.
I was all in on this. Yeah, I went to this in theaters, and it was I loved it then, and I love it now. I mean, I've watched it maybe two or three times since 2007, just on, like, Blu-ray. And then I watched it again, this past week, and I just don't, this is something we're going to have to tackle eventually. So I guess we might as well right now, where the big conversation about this movie back then, and it's still something people talk about now. I found, like, movie discussions about this movie from, like, a year ago, 6 months ago, where people are just, the only thing they can talk about is, oh, the movie just kind of craps the bed in the third act. And I could not disagree more. I love the third act. I think that it is, the seeds are planted for that third act. I think that you're being willfully ignorant if you don't think that's the case. And I love the third act. I love where it goes. But yeah, what do you feel about that?
Well, like you say, like the seeds for that third act are planted literally in the first shot on the ship with Searle, the doctor.
Yeah.
When he's just sitting there, like, slowly succumbing to, like, the same influences that Pinbacker did. If the Icarus 2 had just stayed the course and just continued doing what it was doing, I think that there's a case to be made that they would have experienced the same exact collapse as the first crew did from Icarus 1. For the same reason. Like, I think there's just something eldritch and cosmic going on here. Where it's like you're flying too close to the sun, and eventually someone's gonna crack. Just because of the awe of the experience. Like the almost, like, deity, like, aspect that they kind of give the sun. And this is supposed to be like otherwise it's a hard sci-fi movie. So it doesn't, like, it's easy enough just to think that people are going crazy. But I like the idea that the sun itself is, like, trying to stop them from saving it. Like, it wants to die. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's almost like, yeah, a character in and of itself. And yeah, we get those seeds planted with Searle, and I enjoyed that this time around, sort of noticing that more, where he's really getting invested in spending time in that observation room, as evident by his sunburns. And then he almost sort of, I mean, before Kaneda dies, he's sort of being recruited into that sort of frame of mind too, where, because Kaneda, I mean, the whole reason, you could argue the whole reason why he dies is because he knows that he has to fix the ship, But then instead of at least trying to go back with Kappa, he just stands there and he's like, I'm gonna take this thing in.
Mm.
I'm gonna look straight into the sun. I want this to happen, basically. And then Searle, is on the other end of the radio screaming, what do you see? What do you see? And so it's kind of almost like they're both sort of going down that sort of
Yeah,
cuckoo bananas route a little bit.
yeah. They're just wanting to get as much of of God's light on you as possible. Because like it has, I guess just historically, like that is, like a recurring theme, like in Christianity and probably other, faiths too. It's like you open up the Ark of the Covenant, you're gonna get blasted by something, and yeah, they're on the precipice of it. But yeah, let's talk about the cast a little bit,
Yeah.
because I remember at the time reading a review and people being like, this is like, that was like in Time magazine, they were like, this is a virtue of this movie. It's a really cool thing that it's got such a diverse cast, before like Travers went on to rip it for whatever the issue was, or whoever was writing the review. But it also just really accomplished, like you pointed out in our doc here. It didn't even occur to me that, like, from Hiroyuki Sanada to even Rose Byrne, its nominations, its wins, Emmys, Oscars, even like Benedict Wong, Mark Strong, Chris Evans, like Captain America is in this. A guy in the
Yeah.
Avatar movies is in this. This cast, like, if you tried to assemble this cast today, it would bankrupt the industry.
Yeah, this would be like in actor's salary alone. This movie would be like $150 million, just an actor's salary, because every single one of these cast members, with the exception of one, which I'll get to here in a second,
Yeah, who
has
is
sort
that
of
guy?
yeah, has gone on. I mean, yeah, you have, Cillian Murphy, Best Actor winner in 2023. Rose Byrne, she was nominated this year. Michelle Yeoh won Best Actress for Everything Everywhere All at Once. Sonata won for TV, won Emmys and Globes. So it's crazy. And then, even the people who haven't, gone on to win awards gold, you have Benedict Wong has had a very prolific career. Mark Strong is in like 4 to 7 movies every year.
He is the hardest working actor in the world, and I stand by
Yeah.
that claim. Yeah.
hmm Yeah, and then it's funny though, because the one, I don't even remember his name. I have to look it up here, but it's Harvey,
Harvey,
the
yeah, the
the
comms
uh
officer.
yeah, the comms officer who has just the most brutal death imaginable. That guy
He
has
deserved it though.
really.
He was a chicken shit.
Oh
He
yeah,
he tried to
yeah,
pull the whole "I'm more important than all of you" because everyone else above him has died.
yeah. Yeah, so that guy, yeah, he's in a ton. I mean, he's definitely a working actor still, but his name's Troy Garrity. That's the name of the actor,
Okay.
and but yeah, I want to talk about that for a second though. The ways in which people die in this movie are just like so brutal. I mean, getting burned by the sun while you're screaming over, a radio headset, or slitting your wrists with vibrating scalpels, or yeah, like Garrity or Harvey, basically real like getting bumped off of course and then just floating out into space, and then realizing that is happening to you while you simultaneously suffocate and freeze to death. Just absolutely brutal.
Freeze dried instantaneously. Ugh.
Yeah.
And I wonder if there's gonna be like, I kind of want to watch like some like scientists react to like see, if some of this stuff is accurate, because yeah, the brutal stuff, and the fate of the Icarus One crew also pretty fucking brutal, and just the Pinbacker's whole appearance is so off-putting. Like, it disturbs me, just thinking about this character. And for the longest time, I would I would rewatch this movie like just to have his on his background noise. Like when I was
Mhm.
playing League of Legends back in the day, and I would turn it off as soon as we got to the point that Pinbacker was showing up, because I he made me so disturbed and uncomfortable just thinking about his whole existence. And I think that's a credit to this, because like this movie tries to be so many different genres, like nearly successfully in every single category. Enough that I overlook, whatever, like, little failures it might have, because it's probably the best hard sci-fi disaster space movie ever, in terms of just it had its unique approach to the kind of ship that it was, the mechanics of it, and just the grounded reality of it. Like the fact that everything that's going wrong is, like, I keep on hitting on it, but math and human error. I think that holds it above its fellows, because the again, there was somewhere else I was going to go with. Oh, and then it's a horror movie. On top of that, it's an outright slasher, like monster movie, like in space, while still being a disaster movie with like a man on a mission, sort of a situation at the same time. So it's really a wonder, and I think it speaks to Garland's and Boyle's strengths in that they are able to not only redefine existing genres, but just find some way to make an alchemy of something unique. Like all on its own. Because out of all of the possible pairings we could have chosen, like this is the most interesting one, in my opinion.
Oh yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. Space
far
space
and away.
horror is yeah, space horror is a really really interesting genre, and it's yeah. I personally, like I said at the beginning, I love it. I have to be very careful here because I love that it turns to horror. Any problems that I have with the ending just they lie solely with Pinbacker just as a character, where
Okay.
it is sort of it is tough to establish a villain in sort of the final 20 minutes of your movie. And his motivate, a lot of his dialogue is just kind of like nonsense to me. I mean, I get where they were trying to go in with it, where he's basically like, he wants to sabotage the mission because, he's like, in the end there will be one man and God or whatever. And it's just like I get where they're trying to go with it, but it kind of just it kind of just struck me as a lot of nonsense. And the one thing that I don't like, though, and I agree with a lot of people on this, is how Boyle goes all out on the stylistic like cinematography with Pinbacker, where it's like he is always out of focus or just in these intense like close-ups on like his eyes. And the score, every time Pinbacker's on screen, the score is like this really grating, like violin string instruments. And then there are these very strange like freeze frames
Yeah.
towards the end too, where when Kappa and Rose Byrne's character are like, when they're falling in like the inside the bomb, and there's like these weird like freeze frames, and I'm like, why did he do that? What is going on here? I don't really understand it. But that's sort of my that's the only thing that I really knock this movie for, I guess. And why I rate it what I do rate it, which is slightly less than perfect, I guess is what I'll say, because we don't want to reveal
Yeah.
our ratings here. But yeah, I don't know. How do you feel about that? Like all the weird stylistic stuff with Pinbacker. I know there's a rumor out there that Boyle did not like the makeup for Pinbacker, and that was
Oh.
that was like his solution, was basically like his makeup people did the effect, and Boyle basically looked at it and said, I don't like this. I don't like the creature effects that you've done on him. So in order to remedy that, we're just gonna film him so that you can never see his whole body.
Oh,
But yeah,
that
what did you make of that?
that would make sense. But
Hmm.
I see. My thought was, if they if they gave it too much clarity, that, because like this was rated R, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yep.
it already was rated R. So it's like, what is the is the MPAA going to make this NC-17 because they have this like scorched, like blistered naked man running around? Like I don't know, like that'd be the only other explanation is that but I like that theory because that makes sense. Like I chalked all the weird like editing flashes, because I tried looking into that and no one has good explanations for it
Mm-hmm.
apart from like the crew photos kind of mirror each other between the two crews, and there's like that's some of like what is flashed at times, but I think it's just to maybe show that these two crews mirror each other. Their fates are, identical, and now they're intertwined. I don't know, but that kind of like weird, edgy, creative choice, makes sense for them. But it really is out of place in a movie that is otherwise just very, straight. By giving you like a straight and narrow, interpretation of it. They're not doing anything like wild with like fast cuts and weird editing until they do. And I don't know if that's maybe just to show you internally like this is what they're thinking about, in that moment of everything going fucking haywire on them when they're in the bomb. But yeah, I don't know, maybe there was some second thoughts just in general about Pinbacker, because you could have had a lot more straightforward of a movie if you just eventually have them just crash into the sun and like lose like half an hour off the runtime. Like, would it still be as powerful of a movie? Probably, but I don't think we'd still be talking about it as much. Like, I'm really glad that they went that direction, because like I said earlier, it made it so much more interesting and worth revisiting. And yeah, I look at like the trailers and the posters for this movie, and the advertising just feels so off. Like it's almost like the Hollywood of that time thought that they were selling people Project Hail Mary. Meanwhile, it was a Danny Boyle, Garland joint, which is going to be transgressive and kind of weird, and you're really not as commercial as they maybe thought it was.
Yeah.
But I do want to point out, like, another similarity these movies have. They have the weird, like, wall of screens rooms for people to go inside and, like, do, like, exposure therapy to, like, waves and shit. I thought that, I don't know, like, Andy Weir, I think you owe Danny Boyle and Alex Garland some, some of your residuals and your royalties, because you stole some of their ideas, man.
Well, I mean, it's kind of a tradition now in sci-fi, because you could take it all the way back to Star Trek,
I
even
suppose
if
you
you wanted
could.
to.
Yeah,
Yeah, and so
this is our primitive version of a holodeck. Yeah.
yeah. But it's funny you bring that up. I want to know how you thought the future tech in this movie held up, because this movie is now nearly 20 years old. And so while I was watching it this time for the show, I was thinking about, oh, like, how does this stuff, hold up for being a movie that was released in 2007? And I thought like a lot of the CG whole is still amazing. Like all the effects are really good still. Everything like that.
All the
And then just
space
like
walk stuff, like
yeah, amazing. And the only thing that I was like, when you look at, you look around the ship and you look at their computers and you look at their, how all that stuff is designed. And the one, very, very small, very, very like, it's almost not even worth mentioning, but the little like clip-on things that they clip to themselves to talk to Icarus, like on their shirts and stuff, look very, very like iPod Nano. Do you remember like
I
iPod
do.
Nanos? Yeah,
Yeah.
like it looks very, very like iPod Nano or iPod Shuffle to me. And I was like, okay, that's like the one thing that, looks a little like mid 2000s design to me, but otherwise everything else is very, very,
Well,
still looks very cool.
and what do you think of the Icarus computer in terms, because obviously she's part of a legacy that goes all the way back to Hal. There was a moment that like made me laugh because just of the way that the voice actor is doing the voice of the computer, where when they're doing the spacewalk and things, like and they're just kind of in the middle of it, and then all of a sudden,
Oh, she like takes over.
she just takes over, and she's like, "No, we are not doing what you're talking about. We have a catastrophic problem, so I am taking over." It just made me laugh a little bit because it was just so intense, and like it almost played nefarious for a second because she was like, "No, I will not be doing that," and it was like, "Whoa, why is she so evil?"
She actually has like a personality, which is interesting because you can either give the computer a personality or you can just make it the bleep bloop I am a computer voice. And I love how she has those little personality quirks. Like there's also the scene where one of the best scenes in the movie, especially when you saw the movie for the very first time, when Kappa is like he's in the bomb and he's doing like maintenance on the bomb, and he's like, computer, how long will it take us to get to the bomb? And then she eventually is like, Kappa, crew will not survive the trip. And he's like, computer, like, no, the crew will survive the trip. And she's like, negative, crew will not survive the trip because, and he's like, and then he eventually says, computer, like, how many people on the ship? And she's like, 4 people on the ship. And he's like, computer, no, there should only be 3 people on the ship. And they're kind of, it's almost like they're arguing about it.
Yeah. But it kind of just speaks to the fact that it's like, imagine if Siri could bite back at you. It's like, well, actually, human, you're wrong. There's an evil guy who wants to kill you, and I've known this whole time, and you just didn't fucking ask me. Like,
yeah, that was great. I loved all that stuff. I really remember like seeing all that stuff for the first time and how like just how well it was dropped, how well that information was doled out. And it also makes me think about the when they first go on Icarus One and they have the subliminal flashes of the Icarus One crew and how terrifying that was when watching the movie for the first time, because seeing it in a theater, it's like some people saw that, some people noticed it, some people didn't notice it because it's so fast the first couple times it happens. And you kind of got that, like, in the audience, that sort of uncomfortable, like, tittering where the audience, some of the people in the audience were like, kind of laughing almost like, hey, did you see that? Turn to the person that you're seeing the movie with and kind of like, did you see that? Did you see that? And it was like, nobody knew to expect it. Nobody knew what was going to happen there. And it was so scary when those little subliminal things came up.
And that's where the movie turns and becomes something different. So a very deliberate choice. And it just kind of, okay, you're settled in. We're going to reset you now. Mm-hmm. It's cool stuff. Mm-hmm. So let's talk about, I guess, our ultimate takeaways from both of these.
Yeah.
So, because in your note, this is a very good point. Both of these movies do kind of represent, like all of humanity, all of the nations of the world coming together, but they both wind up with a white man at the end of the day being the one to save it, even though it's like a team of nations. Is that just because this is still just Hollywood making stuff? Like we can't quite globalize it enough to, have, like a different race or a different gender to be the hero, ultimate hero in a movie like this. We're still not there 20 years later.
I think so. I mean, if it's not overtly that, there's definitely some sort of unconscious, just pivot where it always seems to pivot to this, where it's like, this lone survivor who basically has to either, Matt Damon's character says in The Martian, I'm going to science the shit out of this.
Yeah.
The person, he has to either science the shit out of it, or he has to just through sheer willpower, through sheer, like, I am going to do this, pulling yourself up by the bootstraps mentality. He's going to get this thing done. And I think that that definitely is a factor because I feel like that I don't know. I was thinking about a lot of these movies that are similar to this, both that were made recently and not so recently. And I think about like Contact and Armageddon and Passengers and even shows like For All Mankind. And
Mm,
I feel like we've sort of drifted in this direction of like, okay, instead of having like a team of saviors, we're gonna do the lone, the lone savior. Or instead of doing like the in Contact, it's like the whole world comes together to solve this problem. And I feel like we're drifting away from that mentality, where it's like, no, this is gonna be NASA that's gonna do this thing. This is gonna be, and you even look at like Chinese media.
mhm.
If you've ever heard of the movie The Wandering Earth, that movie is all about like the Chinese basically strap rockets to the planet Earth to move it, like literally move the Earth, and that's it's very very like um, Chinese propaganda. I don't know. Have you ever seen that movie?
I
It's a
haven't seen
Netflix
it.
movie, I
I've
think.
heard of
Okay.
it. I've heard of it though, because
Yes, it's
the three body problem is another example of that too. I'm glad you included that because like in that one, the Chinese space savior, as it were, literally just has their brain put into a probe and then launched at light speed at the other alien races, solar system, so that they can clone him and like bring him back to life.
mhm.
For like the reasoning is really strange, but he winds up being an important character. But like that's where that story goes, for people who just saw the first season of it. I think they
Sure.
even hint at that in there. But yeah,
Mhm.
there's no matter how you're getting launched into space to save everybody, whether you're a brain in a can or you're Matthew McConaughey.
Mhm.
Golly, and Ad Astra is another one that I'm glad I need to revisit that.
Oh,
That
I love that movie. That movie rules. I That was one of those movies that I like Sunshine. That's another one of those movies that I think people were way too hard on. I don't know what people expected. I guess they expected more of like a action movie, like space action, but really what it ends up being is Brad Pitt grappling with his like daddy issues basically.
Yeah, and I mean they did do some really cool stuff in that movie. Just to shout out like the lunar, like like the when they're getting attacked by those raiders on the moon.
Oh yeah, yeah, on like the moonwalkers or the
That's
moon
the moon buggies.
yeah, buggies,
That
yeah.
that part is really cool. Really,
Mhm.
it is like I don't know the hard sci-fi underappreciated genre, but it does have good entries in it. And I need to revisit that one. That almost could be the aperitif to these two, in terms of or Gravity, dude. The ultimate. I'm just well. Let's less sciencing the shit out of it and just I am just gonna until until I survive. Unless
Yeah, yeah, because
you're just trying to save yourself, not the world. So I guess that doesn't quite fit the theme.
yeah. I guess the one other thing too, we've been sort of talking around this idea for the whole show, but the other thing that these movies, I guess not, they don't have in common, and they're very different in their approaches, is very different approaches to the space savior narrative, where Sunshine and Kappa represent that the indomitable human spirit narrative where, Kappa, he is on this mission for a very specific reason. He's there to basically do bomb maintenance and then
Yeah,
eventually to set the bomb off. And that's why he's there. He doesn't know anything else. That's why he's there. And he only gets through his trials because of sheer willpower, basically. And then on the other hand, you have Grace in Project Hail Mary, who is, this he is applying his breadth of knowledge, of scientific knowledge, to basically like constant problem solving. And so it's like you have these two characters, they're approaching how they're going to survive in very, very different ways.
Definitely.
Uh,
Yeah. And yeah, and I guess yeah, and they're just totally different people, as well when you get down to it. The like one definitely signed up for that suicide mission, knowing that the last people who went didn't make it back. And this guy has multiple scenes of him having to like run away because
Yeah.
he's being pressed into service for the sake of all mankind. But I guess that kind of brings us to a close here today. We haven't quite settled on what our next pairing is going to be, but it'll be a good one, I'm sure. You please check out Project Hail Mary and Find Sunshine wherever you can stream it, or if you have an old DVD collection in your parents' basement, go dig it out of there. I'm sure your dad bought it at some point.
Yeah. And do go over to our Letterboxd, our still
Yeah,
very newish Letterboxd account to see what we rated both of these movies. Because and yeah, connect with us over there. We're looking for followers. We're looking to follow other people, just to make things a little more interesting over there.
definitely expand
Mhm.
our network of fans and friends. Thank you all for watching. You take care now. Thanks, Matt.
Yep. See ya.